Hello and welcome to another RadioTimes.com Love Island live chat. I'm Sarah Doran.
And I'm Ellie Harrison.
And we are going to take you through what's sure to be, I think, to use my favourite word, explosive, let's say interesting, 24 hours and night ahead in the Love Island villa. Wouldn't you say so, Ellie?
Yes, as ever, there's a lot of gossip to discuss.
And there's something very exciting going to happen at the end of tonight's episode. But before we get to that, we have to go back and talk about some of the more interesting, slightly less exciting, but still rather relevant things that will happen this evening. The first of which involves a storyline that I feel has, quite frankly, gone on far too long.
Yeah, that's right. This is Meghan's big dilemma.
Oh, Meghan. Meghan can't choose between Alex and Wes, in the same way Meghan couldn't choose between Eyal and Alex. Different Alex, though. Dr. Alex, not new Alex, who's, I believe, Spectacles Wearer of the Year 2017 or is it 2016?
Yeah, really
Alex?
obscure award ceremony. But the common factor in this is that Wes keeps coming back and catching Meghan's eye. So Wes was able to take a new islander of his choice out on a date, and he chose to bring Meghan. And this really ruffled the feathers of Alex, who's obviously trying to crack on with her. And again, she's got people fighting over her, and she can't choose which boy she likes best.
You know, I've got to say, right, more power to Meghan in a way, in that, she's proven that, there's nothing wrong with a girl who kisses a few boys. There's nothing wrong with a girl who, holds the power. The problem is that with great power, to quote one of my favourite superheroes, or his relatives, comes great responsibility, Meghan. And just like Spider-Man, you have to be very careful what you do with this power. To be honest, you're not being, I suppose, the most responsible with it at the moment, and it's kind of annoying me.
Yeah, I love that analogy for one. And yes, for two, it's just getting a bit snaky.
Yeah, and samey, and like you say, it's really ruffling Alex's feathers. And in fairness, he came in knowing she was kind of, looking at Wes. He knew what he was getting into.
Yeah, I think he knew that, her eye would easily wander. There's obviously history there. Is she the female version of Adam? Maybe. But interestingly, Alex isn't just going to take this lying down. No. So after Wes and Meghan go on their date, he sits him down, confronts him man to man and says, I thought you'd at least tell me that you wanted to take Meghan on a date. And Wes came back quite defiantly saying, you have to be quite brutal in here. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And then drops the bombshell that he actually kissed Meghan on the date, and Alex is pretty disappointed by that.
I could sit here and I could be like, oh my God, this amazing thing's going to happen on Love Island tonight. But I'm like, oh my God, this same story just keeps playing itself over and over and over in the same cycle. And like you say, Wes is like, oh, you have to be selfish in here, you have to whatever. To be honest, Wes, no, you don't. You don't really have to be that muggy. You don't have to behave that kind of nasty with people. Maybe I'd be more on your side. Maybe I'd be more into the games you're trying to play if I found you more endearing. I don't know why I'm talking to Wes. It's as if Wes is behind the camera with all you lovely viewers. I just think if he had been more respectful towards Laura, if this whole thing had played out a little differently, maybe I'd be really into this storyline.
But I think it's partly a case of they're all as bad as each other. Like, they only have each other to follow by example. And within the villa, if everyone's behaving badly, it's like, oh, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. Also, interestingly, Meghan basically has them both wrapped around her little finger, even though she's mugged them both off. Essentially, she's their only hope of staying in the villa. So I think even if Alex or Wes wanted to say, hang on a minute, I thought you were into me and then you ditched me, which he's done to both of them, they can't. They have to kind of pander to her and be sycophantic because she's the only one that's keeping them in. So it's quite clever. If there is that much strategy behind it, who knows?
Who knows? Speaking of muggy behaviour, could we be about to see some from our beloved little G?
Oh, Georgia, you've been banned. Don't become the villain.
So tonight, as Ellie mentioned already, we're going to see Wes and Georgia as the only single people left in the villa being allowed to pick islanders to take on dates. So I think on her first date, Georgia takes Sam Bird, who, let's face it, is not having a connection with Jack's ex, Ellie. I always have to preface the Ellies. There's too many Ellies, too many Georges. Ellie, not Ellie right here.
Old Ellie, new Ellie.
Jack's ex Ellie.
Radio Times Ellie.
Not Radio Times Ellie.
Making an appearance next week.
So, he heads out with Georgia for a bit. And then she, in fairness to her, right, she approaches Laura. And she says to Laura, listen, Laura, there's not a big batch to choose from in here. I mean, I think we quite know there's a huge batch to choose from right now. So I'd like to take Jack on a date. Now, Jack has seemed quite, loyal to Laura, I guess. I haven't seen much of Jack, really.
Haven't seen much of them. I quite liked him at the beginning because he said, oh, you know, you always look down when people compliment you, and he seemed to be quite insightful and, you know, really kind of like, well, watching at her behaviour and trying to, you know, get under her skin. But yeah, so when Georgia approaches Laura to say, by the way, I'm going to take Jack on a date, Laura kind of says, well, I'm not going to be, you know, up like clapping and dancing for you and be elated. Obviously, that upsets me, and there are a lot of people to choose from in the villa. Like, I don't really take that as an excuse. And she also says, oh, I think later in the beach hut, Laura says, I wish people would stop stealing my man. You know, obviously Megan took Wes, and now it looks like Georgia might be trying to turn Jack's head. And unfortunately, he says something to that effect on their date, doesn't he?
So when they go on the date, Jack is like, oh, I've kind of never seen this flirty side to you before. Because, you know, this is the thing they always say. It's always like, oh, I always did like you, but you looked so comfortable with X, Y, or Z, whoever has left the villa since then, or who you've like uncoupled with at this stage. And he's like, maybe you could be. You're probably the only one that could turn my head.
Yeah, apart from Laura.
Come on. Laura's been so much better. I said this yesterday. Laura's been so much better since she's been free from Wes. I don't think they were the right match. I think she was constantly trying to hold on to him. He wasn't really giving her the reassurance she needed. They were just wrong for each other. And while she's been with Jack, she seemed to be this much kind of happier, more kind of independent woman.
Chilled out.
She's been sitting there munching on her popcorn, enjoying all the drama unfolding around her. And the last thing I want is to lose that Laura, especially to Georgia, who I absolutely love and have been totally rooting for, and who I did love last night when she went down for her little chat with Kaz or Kez or, you know, Casimir? What is it? That was getting to me a bit by the end. And then I was like, no, wait, G, you're going to be the bigger person. You're going to have a nice chat. But then she still stuck the knife in a couple of times.
Yeah, saying, well, good luck with him, because, you know, I think he's more of a boy than a man. To be honest, she was being pretty funny with it. Obviously, she was being, you know, quite bitchy, but at least it was funny. You couldn't help but laugh at her efforts because they were just so obvious.
But yeah, there was a real element of Georgia too. And to be honest, I think Georgia and Jack probably could be a good couple.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. Is she just choosing him because she hasn't seen that much spark between him and Laura, so she thinks he's an easy bet, or does she actually fancy him? Because I can't imagine that she would be moving on from Josh that quickly. Like, she was fully gutted about him leaving, but then it's a game. You have to save yourself. I feel like she might have chosen Jack because they're not exactly besotted with each other. Although you could say that about a lot of couples in the villa right now, couldn't you? Which I guess brings us on to who's at risk of the big dumping this evening.
Who's coming home? I said I'd sing it. She dared me to sing it.
She's followed through.
As far as I'm going. Who's coming home tonight? We know that 4 islanders will be dumped from the island tonight. Now, at the time we're coming live to you, we're not sure if that's going to be couples. We're not sure if it's going to be a bit like when Zara and AL left, if it's going to be like, you know, where they get broken up and they have to pick individuals. But we do know that we have been voting for our favourite couples. And we are going to talk a little bit about who we think could be at risk. So first up is a couple that we saw were in a little bit of trouble last night, and that is Adam and Daryl. Ellie, I have to ask, do you think Adam genuinely still has feelings for Zara?
I don't know. I mean, that seems to be his latest excuse for why he doesn't want to be with his current girl. But as we saw straight after Zara left the villa, he said, I did like Zara. I mean, I do like Zara. So I think, you know, those feelings were dissipating pretty quickly before Daryl even turned up, essentially. So I think people will see through that. And also, I just think that because Adam isn't a favourite and Daryl's so new, people won't vote to save them, so they could be forgotten and then end up kind of leaving. And
I think a lot of couples are in that bracket. Like, you look at like Sam and Ellie, you look at even Laura and Jack, I think could be in that kind of bracket as well. You know, but again, people really like Laura. I mean, Megan and new Alex, they could also be at risk. And I think Dr. Alex and Grace. I really think that maybe Dr. Alex has used up all of the goodwill that there's kind of left for him at the moment. I mean,
that's the thing. Before, he was just guaranteed to have the sympathy vote, not to kind of undermine the fact that maybe some people actually generally think he's a great character. But I don't know if the sympathy vote will save him anymore. And him and Grace, as we saw in last night's episode, excruciating conversation. They are not compatible whatsoever. I mean, I find his deadpan humour quite funny, but I think you have to be doing it with the right person, otherwise they're just not getting it.
It actually scares me how seemingly compatible Dr. Alex and I would be. Because I also prefer rugby to football. I also call my mother like every single day, and I have quite a similar background.
You have to do
kind
the
of in a way.
compatibility test.
And
to do it.
I think it's known in certain circles that my boyfriend is tall, pale, and Welsh. So, you know, it's just like, which one to go for?
Watch out, Hugh.
Watch out. We talked there about people are kind of indifferent about, but there's a lot of anger towards Josh at the moment.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if this puts Josh and Kaz in a real danger zone tonight.